I'm Cubacub from Rebirth Garments, a clothing line for queer and trans disabled folks of all sizes and ages. I'm here today to show you how to make a packing belt. So I was thinking about what the easiest and most accessible way to show you all how to make something that could hold a packer, and I came up with this solution. This was one of my very first sewing projects when I started Rebirth Garments. This is actually the exact one, but it'll be a little bit different for you all. So it is basically just a little pocket that can hold a packer being a prosthetic to create a bulge in your pants, typically worn by folks who are transmasculine, non-binary, drag performers, but also just like anybody who wants to. Materials you'll need for this tutorial are spandex, paper, pattern weights, but soup cans also work, scissors, I like to have fabric scissors and paper scissors, binder clips or pins, a sewing machine that has a zigzag stitch, or you could use a serger. You need some sort of marking tool, a ruler, a measuring tape, or you could use non-stretch string and a ruler to figure it out, or even a phone charger, and a calculator. Optionally, you can use 1 to 2 inch elastic for the waistband, which instead of getting new elastic, you could just cut some out of an old pair of underwear or anything that you have on hand. And for the leg straps, you could have either a 1/4 to 1/2 inch elastic, but this is still also optionally. You can substitute any of this with just spandex. Here are 3 different examples of packing belts that I've made in the past. In this case of this garter belt packing belt, I just wanted to show you all these examples because you can expand your idea of what a garment could or should be, and you can mishmash different ideas of garments together that usually kind of quote unquote contradict each other to typical society. And I think that the result is always really fun. So yeah, and you can use scrap fabrics. You can even cut up old t-shirts too for your packing belt. Just anything that's stretchy works. And I do know that people who have any bits, cotton against your bits is usually a lot more healthy. It is less likely to give you a yeast infection. I like spandex a lot, but definitely it's not for everybody. I am showing you a packing belt that will be kind of made to be worn over any of your existing underwear, and that way you can get more use out of the one craft project rather than having to make a ton of them. But totally make a ton of them if that's something that you have time and energy and excitement for. Go to the link at the bottom of the video in the description to print out this packer pocket pattern. It will be in a Google Doc that you can print out easily. Just so you know, it's going to be kind of this is the center front. This is this seam here. You're going to cut out 1, 2, and then another underneath, 1, 2. And then you'll cut out some long rectangles that are just basically strips of spandex for the waistband and for the leg bands. Basically, we just want to measure wherever you want the belt part of the packing belt to hit. So I want mine to be around here, and I'm going to write down my measurements. You will see my measurements just so that I can show you all the calculations. The other measurement you can take is just around your leg, just at the very top of the thigh. And if you want, you can measure the length that you want the packer pocket to be. You don't want it to be as long as you might think, because then the packer will be kind of resting at the bottom of the pocket, and you don't want it to be like too much into your crotch. So I'm going to kind of look at this pattern against me. I might even end up making it shorter, or you can always put in a little stitch at the bottom to make the packer sit higher. You're going to take your measurements and you are going to reduce it by 20%. So again, anytime you're taking a measurement that's across the body horizontally, in order to make it tight-fitting, like skin tight, you want to reduce it by 20% with any kind of stretch fabric. Some stretch fabric could have less stretch than others, but generally this is the rule. But you can always make a mock-up, or this is a very easy project to actually just make things tighter on yourself as you try it on. So I'm going to take my hip measurement, which is 34, and do times 0.8, and that is 27.2. I'm actually going to round this down to 27. Usually I don't say to round down too much, but in this case, because it'll be just a waistband, you can round it a little bit down. Now we'll take my leg measurement, 22 inches, and do times 0.8 in order to make it reduced by 20%, and that is 16.6. But we're going to round this down to 16.5. Now we are going to pattern the waistband. So when we think about the thickness of the waistband, think about your desired thickness, and then you're going to double that just because it will be a folded over piece of spandex. So I think in this case, this was 4 inches because I wanted basically a 2-inch waistband, give or take a little bit because of the seam allowance. So I think I want something like that. Again, I like the look of the thicker waistbands, and they also actually don't hurt my stomach as much because I have a stomach disorder. So I am going to take my hip measurement that was reduced by 20%, which is now, that calculation is 27, and I am going to draw out a 27-inch by 4-inch rectangle. And like in my binder tutorial, if you want a right angle, you can take a book or a piece of paper and kind of draw that right angle. And this side actually is already a right angle, so that's nice. So now we just measure the 4 inches up. We will actually sew together the pocket and the waistband before we even cut out the leg bands. And now just cut this out. Now we are going to label your pattern. So I'm going to say this with my name: Sky Packing Belt Waistband. And the date, because it's always good to know what the date was when you made things. So if you make versions in the future, you can know the difference. And I am going to draw the grain line. And this is a line that will run parallel to the selvage edge of the fabric. So this is the selvage edge, the edge that has kind of some extra ribbing that feels kind of strange. You can also always think of the grain line as like you want the stretch pulling from the grain line around your body. Sometimes the selvage edge is just where the print ends and it just looks different. So this one just has a little rainbow sample. And you're just going to cut one of these in spandex. We are going to cut out the waistband now for the packing belt. I am going to have mine match my chest binder that I made in the last tutorial. So I'm going to line up the grain line with the selvage edge, having it parallel. You can trace it and cut it out with scissors. I'm going to use a rotary cutter just because that's easier for me. Here we have our waistband, and this will get folded over, so this will be the actual width of the waistband. Now we're going to cut out the 4 pieces of the packing belt pocket. So I want it to be a fun pattern, and I'm going to have one side be in this ombre and then the other side be in this mesh so that you can see through a little bit, but you don't have to do that. I'm gonna look at the selvage edge over here, and I see that I will want the rectangles to be kind of long ways horizontally. So I'm going to cut out one of these in a nice scrappy area. And you don't have to add seam allowance because it is already included. But you can, if you end up making one and decide that you want the pocket to just be bigger, you can add it if you want. It just depends on your preference. Again, you can cut out this with scissors, but I'm going to do it with a rotary cutter because that's what I'm used to. So I have one side cut out. This is going to be the left side because this is the side and this is the center. And then the right side is going to be in this fun mesh. So when you want to cut out the other side, you need to flip it. Here now I have the other side, and I'm just going to cut this out. Since it's mirrored, that's why you want to flip it and why you don't have 2 different pieces. The cool thing about making patterns that are symmetrical is that you only need to make one side and then you can flip it and it mirrors it. So now we're going to cut out just the back pieces, and we're going to cut out one side like this and one like this. And because I'm just cutting it out in the same material, I am going to cut it out at the same time. So yeah, here's the grain line, and this is like mostly a 90-degree angle, so I am going to just cut it out like this. I'll cut it out with scissors. So this is the back, and this will be the front, and you'll just see it a very little bit, but that's why I'm cutting it out in a fun color. You're going to put the right sides together and I use binder clips because I feel like they're safer. You're just going to pin on the side that you will sew. So like that. And then over here, like this. Now you're going to pin your waistband. So you're just going to fold it over with the right sides together because you're going to sew it and then turn it inside out. Sew the center seams on both of the pockets. I am just going to line up the side with the side of the foot. And remember to backstitch. And sewing curves, yeah, you really want to just try to imagine lining it up with this side. If you try to think about sewing a curve, it really confuses your brain. Sew the other one. Now you can sew your waistband. So now we have your little pieces sewn and you can cut them apart. Take your pocket and the inside of your pocket. And what you're going to do is have the good sides touch, so both of the outsides. And you are going to pin it so that you can sew around to make your pocket. Have the good sides touching, so you will be able to see right now your seam allowance. And now you can sew. And just try to make sure your fabrics are lined up, you can see like the edge of the other fabric. Once you get to the corner, you can put the needle down and then you lift up the foot and then you turn. And now we're going to get rid of that pin or binder clip. And it's okay if the seam allowance gets sewn in. So now we're going to put that down and gonna make sure these are lined up still. And now you can sew again. Now you have your pocket sewn. You're gonna turn it inside out, or right side out. So there you go. Now in order to turn this tube inside out, we're going to take a piece of string or elastic or whatever and put a safety pin at the top of it and run it all the way through your tube in order to then attach the safety pin to the other side, and then you're going to turn it right side out. Now I'm going to just attach this to this side, and now you're going to turn it inside out. I'll just hold on to the seam allowance. Now you have your little waistband tube, and that was pretty easy. Now what we're going to do is top stitch on this tube so that you can make the waistband look a little bit stronger. I'm going to have the seam just at the bottom, and I'm going to just clip that. And you want to make sure that it's not too rolled in when you are sewing it. So yeah, that's mostly why I'm clipping it, is to close to the edge as possible. And we're also top stitching with the zigzag machine just so that the waistband is a little bit stronger, since this one doesn't have any elastic in it. If you want, at this point, this is where you would put your elastic and thread it through. You can also use a safety pin, but I'm not going to do that because I don't actually like elastic in my waistbands because it hurts my stomach. So yeah, now we have that pinned, and we're just going to top stitch. And yeah, I have it in a fun color because that's what I like, but you can have it blend in or whatever you want. And now I'm going to just lift the foot, and I'm going to turn it around and top stitch the other side. And that's, yeah, it's just to give it a little more strength. I'm going to take the side that I like and have those right sides touch each other, and I'm going to sew this together. But you can also check it on your body first to see if it seems tight enough. Remember to hold your strings while you're putting the needle down into your piece, and then you can sew. Now you have your waistband, and you can decide to have this seam on the back or on the side. I like to have it on the side. It bothers me less that way. And what you're going to do is take your pocket. You're going to figure out where the center is. So if this was just in the back, then you're like, here's the center. But since I'm doing it on the side, I'm going to fold it again into quarters. And so now I know that this is my center, and I'm going to line it up with the seam in the center of my little pouchy. So now I'm going to clip that. You're going to clip just the front of the pocket, not the back, because you want to leave the back open in order to be a pocket for the middle, and then you can clip the sides. We are going to look at the back side of the pocket, and you really want to sew it like this so that you can tell what's going on. We're going to put this down. It can be before the pocket so that we can have some of the back stitching not on the pocket. And basically you're just going to try to catch a tiny bit of this pocket, and then you're going to pull of the back part of the pocket, which is the yellow part here, and then you're going to pull it down and sew the front part, and then you're going to catch the last bit again. So I'm going to hold my strings, put the needle down. I'm going to put the foot down and just like back stitch a bunch right here, because this is where anytime where there's like pressure or yeah, strain on something, you want to put more back stitches there. Okay, so there I have it just being caught a little bit, and now I'm going to pull the pocket down and just catch the front of the pocket. And now you're just going to catch this last part of the pocket again. And then back stitch a bunch. And now you have your pocket, so you can fit your packer in, and then we're going to turn it right side out. So yeah, here we have our little packing belt, and if you want, you can add leg straps. You don't have to, but I think it's more secure feeling if you add leg straps. So I will put this on myself, and then I will measure out the leg straps while it's on me. When it has a packer and it's over your underwear but under your other clothing, it could just be like this and be fine. But I like to feel more secure. If you want, you can use safety pins and safety pin this on just to figure out the length that you want the elastic to be. I'm safety pinning it on just like I would with the seam allowance, and then I'm going to just take this, and you can make your own elastic like I showed you with the waistband, or you can use the thinner elastic, and you can have the elastic go wherever you want. So I think I'm going to have it go to the side seam, but if you want, it can go further forward or whatever, and you can do some fun things with elastic to make it look more designed if you want. So I'm just gonna go here, and I just pull it to however like kind of feels comfy, and then I'm just gonna cut it with some added seam allowance, and now you have your piece, and you're just gonna cut another one the exact same length, and you'll just sew it in the same places but on the other side. To sew the leg straps, you're just going to have the elastics or the spandex pieces right next to each other, and you can just sew across them. It'll just look like a little top stitch on the other side. So we're going to do this, and remember to do lots of back stitching. Yeah, zigzag across the whole thing backwards and forwards. Also, if you ever don't like where the packer is hitting in the pocket, you can always put a top stitch higher up and it will make it sit higher. So, but that's up to you. And everybody's packers are probably different, so yeah, you just have to try it out. Now I'm going to take these leg straps and make sure that they don't get twisted, and I'm going to sew it to the seam allowance over here, and then I'll sew it on the other side. It'll just be the opposite side over here. Now you're going to sew the other side of the leg strap to your side seams or wherever you want them to be. So I'm going to put this under here. So I'm actually going to sew it a couple times, and like at the top and kind of more at the bottom, just so that there's some extra stability. I have that side, and now, yeah, to find out where the strap goes on this side, you just fold it in half like this. And I'm gonna take this, and this side will be easier to sew because it has less things going on with it, with the side seam. And again, I'll put some extra stitches just for fun. And now you have your packing belt. So cute. Check out the rest of the Radical Fit playlist on the YOUmedia Chicago YouTube channel. We would love to see the projects you are working on, so use the hashtags CPL Radical Fit, YOUmedia, and YOUmedia Chicago, and tag us on Instagram and Twitter at YOUmedia Chicago. Or find us on our Facebook, YOUmedia at Chicago Public Library.